Calimera, Giselle. Buenos dias.
Buenos días, Romano, and buenos días, Calimera, everyone.
Yes, lovely to be back, and welcome to episode 12. Today we will discuss a very interesting topic, the power of choice.
Yes. Isn't it interesting, Byron, that, when we really look into our lives and then we look back, we realize the things that happen in our life that made us feel alive, fulfilled, somehow it had to do with choices.
A
Well,
100%.
and all experiences in our life are conscious or unconscious choices,
Yeah.
right?
And every waking moment is a choice. Like choose to go left, right, go up, down, choose to eat, not to eat. Every waking moment is a choice. So
Mm.
it's a very powerful distinction to explore. And I'm looking forward to this conversation because there'll be some very profound things that I think are going to surface.
Yes. And as an entrepreneur, business person, or even as a person who just came out to the world in
Hmm.
terms of maybe you're a fresh graduate from university and you may be asking about, okay, what about life? What about my business? What about my career? What do I choose? That could be actually a big question. And I remember that one of the choices that I made that turned my life around, and not just my life, but the life of my entire family, was when I was living in Peru and I was 18. And I'm talking to you about 1990. Oh, sounds like
Mm.
a long time ago. And on that year, I got retrenched twice.
Wow.
It was really hard to find a job, and
Mm.
the situation in Peru was such that usually freshmen or anyone who just came in fresh into a job, these will be the people that will be kicked out whenever there
Mm.
was, retrenchment.
Yes.
And it happened that I was retrenched twice that year, and the very little savings that I had. Remember, I mentioned how I was supporting my mom. She was a single
Yes.
mom, and my siblings were younger. So then I was 18, but they were some of them were teenagers, and the youngest one was little. So then we had to get money coming so that the family can be kept afloat. And then it just months passed, and then you could see, these savings just shrinking and shrinking, and I just getting more and more desperate. And I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Because people would not take me.
Mm.
It was really, really hard. And it was not just myself, it was just the case of thousands of Peruvians at that time because
Yeah.
we had hyperinflation, we had terrorism going on. It was
Hmm.
very, very chaotic. So then one day, one of my aunties said to me, hey, why don't you apply for a job in Japan?
Mm.
And that sounded like, what? I mean, to move across the ocean. I mean, our ancestors came from Japan from my mother's side, but that meant to leave Peru and start a new life. I didn't
Mm.
say anything to my mom, but I was, toying up with the idea. And then it really it's like life pushes you,
Mm.
towards something that perhaps your mind may think, oh, this is crazy. I may not want to do this,
Hmm.
but it's like in your heart, you know that it's the right thing to do. That was actually one of the biggest decisions that I made. It was the most important choice that I made in hindsight.
Mm.
So then there was one day, I think it was probably around the month of September, October, because we left Peru in November 1990.
Mm.
So around probably would have been September. So I said to my mom, I didn't say, what do you think? I said to my mom, we have to leave Peru and we have to move to Japan. There's no other way.
Mm.
And my mom looked at me with this, you call it blank eyes. Like, what are you saying? It was a huge, a very big decision to make.
Yeah.
Because it meant to start life from scratch in a different country.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, we didn't speak Japanese. That meant also learning a new language.
You did not speak any Japanese at all.
Oh, no, I didn't.
I thought you knew Japanese from young.
No, my mom went to Japanese school.
Mm.
But then she shifted to the local regular school. So then she stopped speaking Japanese, but she had some foundation. I had zero. I
Okay.
had only a couple of words. That was it.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then I said that to my mom. I said, look, we can't live here anymore. It was unbelievable. Months before, my mom and I, we almost got killed by a car bomb. It was a terrorist attack. So then that happened. Couldn't find a job. It was just so difficult to continue living in Peru. So then that's how actually we moved to Japan. So going back to choices, sometimes there are these choices that you make in any point in your life that you may not have the complete picture. But that choice will really, it will reroute your life. Trim tabbing, there's this device on any
on a boat,
ship,
boats,
airplanes called trim tab.
Yeah.
So you shift it and then you reroute the whole machine.
I do want to touch upon one thing that is very similar, yet less dramatic. So again, in that same time period, 1992, I get out of university, having studied mechanical engineering aeronautics, with the ambition of either making planes or flight simulators. And I had studied in a program at École Polytechnique de Montréal where the graduating class, the top half, would get placed automatically in the largest airplane manufacturer in Montreal at that time, which was Bombardier. Now, they're an international name for various reasons. And, to me, it was like, okay, once I get in there, my life is settled. And unfortunately, due to various factors, I didn't perform academically well enough to be in the top half. And because there was a recession in 1992 in the North American markets, the company said, sorry, we can only take the top half. We cannot take any more. So I had to fall back on something else or look for something else. And what I ended up choosing was to continue working part-time where I had already been working part-time as a student in an IT company, giving training and doing hardware sales and system support. And I did that for the next 9 years. And I talked about this briefly in a previous episode, but just to summarize, I was working in a job that clearly I was not meant to do, in the sense that, I had a mechanical engineering degree. What am I doing in IT? And I was working for a small company with the ambition to be a successful entrepreneur instead of being an employee. And a lot of my friends kept saying, but are you sure you don't want to change jobs, and get into an engineering? It doesn't have to be with Bombardier or CAE. It can be with any of these other companies that we're working for. Would you be interested in applying? We could put up a good word for you. And I still chose not to.
Okay.
And I'm, when I look back at my life now, if it wasn't for that choice of becoming an entrepreneur, I wouldn't be having the life that I am having right now, which I'm enjoying very much.
Correct.
If I had been like in a corporation as an engineer, I probably would have stayed in there like my friends did for the next 30, 40 years. And I'm not saying they had a bad life. Obviously, they had other perks that I didn't have earlier on in my career. But the idea that I would have probably had a bad life because I was not doing that disappeared very early on. And now a lot of people are quite like, wow, they're fascinated by the fact that I'm in Southeast Asia, where a lot of these guys and gals are still in North America. They didn't leave their towns. So I have from their perspective, I have a very exotic life.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yes. From my perspective, okay, it's just what happened. Now, I want to mention something about, you said life pushes you. One of the things that I believe led to me sticking with that choice of being an IT educator is that when I was in secondary school, everybody used to come to me for help with their assignments because I was top student. So, I'd understand things quickly. And then they'd come and ask me, Byron, can you explain me this? Because the teacher wasn't getting the message across. And somehow I had said this to myself, I will be a teacher one day. I have what it takes. I just thought that, okay, maybe I'll become a teacher like later in my life and I'll work first and then be some kind of an educator. But the education part came in early. I had just graduated. I was already a trainer in project management, but in IT. And I did that almost full time for 9 years. So by the time I started my second training career as a project management trainer, I had all that experience and all that know-how. So obviously, I'm not starting from here. I'm starting from here. And it didn't take much to become like the leading trainer in project management in Southeast Asia.
That's what I was going to say, Byron, because it's like that's the element of surprise of a choice. You don't expect it because when you're choosing, you're not thinking about those things.
Yes.
But you know what? There is an element that I want to bring forth here, which is the soul element. A question that I've been asked over and over in class or during training or one-on-one sessions by clients is, how do you know that you are choosing from your soul and you're not choosing from ego? This is a big question. And there are differences. What's your experience, Byron?
It's interesting because I have experienced this and I have also had the confirmation from people that have taught it to me. Because I have an engineering background, obviously when I want to choose something, it really becomes like a decision that needs data and proof and facts and comparisons. And yes, I can do all that legwork. And then my intuition will tell me, well, yeah, that's correct. So often I'll just go ahead. But the tricky part is when I do the analysis and yeah, I should choose A. But my intuition says no, B is better. And I can't explain it. And I often get disappointed when I go with A because as time goes by, I realize B would have been there. So this is something that I concluded that I think is fundamental. And other people have said the same. When there's a conflict between what your mind is saying, choose A, and what your heart or maybe your soul is saying, choose B, choose B. You'll probably end up with a better result in most cases.
And another big question that always comes is like, oh, how do you know? Or how do I know? One thing that I can share from experience is that you have to engage your physical vehicle, this body, because your body will give you sensations. And most of the time, when we are operating at the mental level or critical level, it is very easy to engage ego and dismiss soul. So it's like operating from here up. Probably you have heard that, right?
Yeah.
And then when you are engaging with your body, you will be able to sense. This is actually one key that I can share with you guys, is that you have to teach yourself and train yourself to listen to your body. Your physical body is a huge barometer or a compass. It will tell you through sensations because the body is actually designed to give you sensations as a feedback to let you know something. So it's very simple. When you are choosing from your soul, the feedback that you're going to get is stillness, peacefulness, and you see that my hands are actually going through my usually throat, chest, belly. You can get that sensation in these areas. Okay,
Yeah.
so then you have to figure out how does your body respond. And probably it is very likely that whenever you have made a choice that you unconsciously, I'll say, knew that was a choice that was going to go against you, you probably have felt something, some form of dissonance in your body, like a, these hunches that that is like, ugh, not a good feeling. Maybe
Yeah.
your
Tingling
gut,
feeling.
it could happen in a matter of seconds. That's why you have to be so present. And I will take the opportunity to bring this back to you. Soul base, keys for freedom. So you got to be present, really present, to be able to listen to your intuition so you can have good discernment. From this good discernment, you can really choose accurately. The choice will definitely be better. Because sometimes, in probably you have had the experience, I have had it, that made a choice based on ego, because wanting, say, to have more of something, or maybe because didn't use my discernment fully. And then instead of going inward or checking really, truly with myself, my true self or my soul, I was just guided by sweet words that spoke to my ego. And therefore, then I went on that path. I had the feeling in my body and still went against that. And of course, the result will be disastrous. And I'm pretty sure that you who is listening to the podcast or watching the video, probably you have had such an experience. And usually those experiences, we call them mistakes, right? And we all make mistakes because we also learn by making mistakes. But the thing is that there is a point in our lives where we have to, again, make a choice and say, okay, I made this mistake, got to learn from it, so I will not make it again. Right? There is a saying in Japanese. 富士山を1回登るは素晴らしい。2回を登るとあなたはちょっとバカ。
I think I can translate that, even though I don't know any Japanese.
Okay, you tell me. What you got?
Fool me once.
Okay.
Shame on you.
Okay.
Fool me twice. Shame on me.
Well, it's something similar. Yeah, something similar. Actually, translated means when you climb Mount Fuji once, that's great. That's amazing because I have climbed Mount Fuji all the way to the crater. It is insane because it's a volcano and you are climbing on lava rocks. And what it means is that when you step forward, you will step backwards 2-3 steps.
Like Frodo when he was climbing Mount Doom in Lord of the Rings, yeah?
It's like you go forward and then you go back. So then the saying goes, if you climb Mount Fuji once, that means that you are great, you're strong, you're intelligent, etc. But if you do it twice, then you're fool. So then, in order to make choices that will be more accurate and more attuned with your soul, please go back to your keys, soul freedom keys. Especially keeping your equanimity.
Yeah.
You really have to tap on equanimity, because if you let your mind be a monkey, crazy monkey jumping here and there, whoa, it makes it really hard to make choices. And very likely you make a choice when your mind is upset or jumping from here and there, you will face the results. Not recommended. Behind the scenes, actually, Byron and I, we have very deep conversations before we get into the recordings. We love doing that because we're such good friends that we can just say to each other just anything, and it's like.
Yes.
So, Byron, you were mentioning the difference between deciding and choosing.
Yes. In fact, I wanted to bring it up earlier, but I wanted to also let you finish your story about your move to Japan. Because I noticed when you were saying it, you initially said I had to make the choice. And then it was the most difficult decision we have ever made. And it's like, yeah, I could see that those two words were being used, and it wasn't like so smooth. So I wanted to bring it up and explain from a vocabulary perspective what happens. So if you look at the word choose, which is from the French word verb choisir, it literally means just going and taking something. In Anglo-Saxon, it would be like just to pick something. Like there's three things on the table, you just pick one.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas decide has a Latin origin, and the side part is the same side as in homicide, genocide, and my mother's favorite word, matricide, because she keeps thinking I want to kill her. Look, we make this episode lighthearted, after a while it's so the side part is actually to kill. So when you decide, you're basically killing off the other part. So if you have A and B, when you choose, you just pick A or B. When you decide, you literally go after A and kill off B. Like there's no way you're going to come back to it. And that distinction is important because people think that they always have to make decisions, and that really stresses them out because they know subconsciously if they go after A, there is no going to B, and vice versa. That's it. Yeah. There's like no point of return. Whereas to choose, you do it out of pure presence. I just choose this and I choose it, and that's the end of it. There was one exercise that I did in a personal development course years ago where the trainer asked a participant, okay, I have a ball of ice cream, one vanilla, and I have another ball of ice cream, chocolate. Choose. And then the person would say, chocolate. Why did you choose chocolate? And then the person would justify, I choose chocolate because I prefer chocolate. Okay, chocolate or vanilla? Which one do you want? Chocolate. And this exercise went on for a long time until the participant got to that space where, oh, I chose chocolate because I chose chocolate. There was no justification. There was no argumentation. There was no ego trying to explain things. I just chose.
Thanks for sharing that, Byron. I love that. And actually, since you mentioned the experience about deciding, making the decision to move to Japan, because there was no other way, really. So yeah, it was a matter of really, when you say decide, it's like killing the other option, but it's really eliminating it because that's what really felt from my heart, my soul, that was a path to take. So then there are moments in our lives when we are in tune and we know. And look what I'm pointing. It's not pointing my head, okay, my mind. We know. You know. You, wonderful viewer, listener, you know. There have been times when you knew exactly what you needed to do. And it does take courage because it's, you face the unknown. However, be open to be surprised beautifully by the cascade of events that will follow up because of your choices. On the next episode, we're going to elaborate more about that. But then, it's being at peace. So then one thing that I want you to know is that whenever you decide or you make a choice from your soul, you will be at peace. There is no second guessing. And you know that that's the path, right? And it's this feeling, and I recall that day, it was around lunchtime that I told that to my mom, and I'm actually, my cellular memory is being activated right now. I can feel this feeling in my gut from my gut to my chest. And it's the sensation of certainty. Like I really, we didn't know. We have no idea what would it be like. However, knew that it was the best thing to do. And it was. It really was. Yeah. We turned our lives around in amazing ways. That will not happen if we stayed in Peru.
I want to say this quickly. So I graduated in 92. The last assignment that I did in my last term before graduating was a course on international competitiveness between companies and economies. And the trip that the team had done the year before was to go to Japan.
Oh, okay.
And to explore the manufacturing miracle that had happened in Japan.
Oh, wow.
And you arrived in Japan in those early 90s when Japan was at the height of its manufacturing excellence. So for sure, you were going in the right place from an opportunity perspective.
Yes.
Whether you knew it or not, at the time, you definitely were at the right place at the right time to start fresh.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. It was the best, one of the best decisions.
Yeah.
And best decisions means zero regrets. Best choices means zero regrets. We will talk more about regrets on another episode because it's also very fascinating. So, my dear Romano, thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you, wonderful viewer, listener. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, we invite you to do that. Give it thumbs up and leave us your comment, please, because from your questions and your comments, we can continue elaborating more the topics that we are to share here with you. So this is a community. So thank you. I will see you in the next video.
Yeah, our community is growing, and this is fantastic to see. I'm glad people are responding positively to this podcast. There's been a lull, in engagement with a lot of people in my circle, especially over the last 5 years with COVID having interfered a lot in that. And I find that this podcast has given me a fantastic chance to reconnect positively with all these friends and acquaintances that I haven't been in contact with for a long time. And I'm really getting a good positive response from that. I think it's really a privilege to be doing this with you and to reaching out to all these wonderful people.
Nice.
That's really good. And I think we're going to get to a point soon where we're going to have enough people in our group that we can actually broadcast live. So that's another reason for you to join so that we can get enough members and YouTube will actually let us broadcast live. Now, we could choose other channels like Rumble and so forth. However, at this point, YouTube is still the most accessible platform. And that's why we want to keep growing there.
That's right. Well, thank you. Muchas gracias.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
See you next. Ciao.
Be well, everybody. Bye.